no longer a weakness. They feel better about it because they feel confident enough on something they need to know.
Oh, let's go. Party time.
It's a whole continuum, and every single preference is on that continuum.
Adjust their chin angle down so they can perceive the ball up a little bit more.
All right. Well, episode 5, we got myself, Matt Woods, Matt Swope, David Janess, and our first ever podcast guest on MPE, JT Gasso. For those who don't know, associate head coach for OU softball, 6 national championships, 9 Women's College World Series appearances, and just an elite, not only part of an elite program, but an elite person. We obviously wanted to bring you on because you have so much knowledge outside of MP, but also, to talk about, your stories within it. And especially your stories within developing, the elite offenses that you guys have had year over year there at OU. And we also wanted to talk about how OU is actually one of the first programs, first softball program actually in 2022 to hop on with MP. So, we wanted to welcome you, JT, and we're fired up to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I am excited to kind of share this, talk about it.
Oh man, I'm fired up, and I know talking with Swoper, I get to pick his brain every day hitting wise, and I think one of the coolest parts about going to universities and specifically down to you guys is getting able to being able to pick your brain and hearing what you guys do and how you develop hitters and how you create plans for them, and selfishly for me, I've had a blast getting to know you and learning how you go about it. So we're pumped to have you on.
Let's go. Let's
Let's
go.
do it. So we'll talk some development, we'll talk some innovation, we'll talk some, sustaining success and how you guys, are the pillar for success in college softball. But wanted to start obviously first with your early career and foundations, how you got into coaching, talking a little bit about Michigan State and your time at Purdue and, how it's led to you getting to OU.
Yeah. So first, like, coming from a coaching family, obviously, my mom, my boss, she
Coach.
she's been at OU, yeah, coach, been here for since '94, October '94. My dad was actually really big in the football space. He was about to go off and be a D1 football coach, and then just kind of long story short, ended up Oklahoma. Grow up and just kind of the normal baseball sports experience. And then when I got to college, went the JUCO route. So JUCO Bandit for life. But what that was probably the biggest foundational piece for me, because there was little resources. You barely had a cage. We had a really nice field, and you lived right next to the field. So really, like, and hours out there didn't matter. So you'd show up to the field at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and you're not leaving till 6, So it was so huge in my just kind of foundational experience, foundational knowledge, because I got to see how people operated. You got to see like draft guys, D1 guys, future pro guys. And it was really just being around those guys. And I'll never forget, and this kind of like leads to MPs. There was a guy who ended up being actually a decorated war veteran. That's a whole nother thing. But we're hitting in the cage, and he goes, we're hitting, and he goes, he like hits one off the ground and hits a bullet up to the center of the cage. And I'm just like, I'm just thinking, like, how did he do that? And he just starts laughing. And he's like, doesn't hitting suck? And I'm like, what? Like, it just kind of, he's like, doesn't hitting suck? Like, that I can do that and hit it. But like, when I try my hardest to just hit it up the middle, I can't do it. And it just got me thinking, like, there's not like one way to do things. Like, it's such a process, such a kind of like an art to be able to compete and do what you're doing, and how you're doing it. So kind of always stored that in our mind, but it taught me how to kind of like be open and just try things, and just like just wanting to know everything. So fast forward, go through college, go through my GA experience at OU, which was huge because we just jumped in 2012 and the national championship game, lost into Alabama, won in 13, and then went to Purdue in 2014. And I actually wasn't working with hitters. I was doing more defensive work and just kind of like same thing, like just through repetitions and just kind of like gaining knowledge of who the players were, what they could do, what they knew, what they didn't know. And then moved to Michigan State. And that's probably, as from a coaching perspective, one of the biggest areas of growth that I saw, because it was like, now everything that you've learned, everything that you know, like put it to the test. Like it either works or it doesn't work. So that was really cool, just because I got to learn more about connecting with athletes and like testing, like keeping myself accountable. Like, this is what you're saying. Is it working? Is it not working? What do you got to do different? And then spent a year there. And honestly, I thought I was going to spend 5 years there, and just was fortunate enough to get called back home. And just through that process, just here today. So it's been like a lot of trial and error, a lot of like, I'm a big try guy, like redneck scientist, like JUCO scientist. That's what I'm not like married to one thing. So when MPs came about, it was like a no-brainer for me. Just kind of connected everything and just kind of brought us to where we're at today.
That was kind of one of probably the coolest things to happen, is how we found each other. Is like, it's interesting that you think you have to maybe get in at the JUCO level or D2 D3 level to kind of like permeate that space, and it's the reigning national champions who just want to grow and learn and can't get enough to like daily how they make themselves better. And that was like one of the coolest things, because that's essentially how I found David. Was like, it doesn't matter about the success you're having if you can't get enough, if you truly honestly feel like you can make someone better. So that's the coolest part.
Well, I'll tell that story real quick. We
Tell it.
were it was 2022. So it was the season after the 22 season. So it's like fall 22, and we had just come off what I think is the best offensive season of all time. The 2022 team was unbelievable. And I'm thinking like, dude, I got it figured out. I got it going on. Like, let's go. Like 150 homers, the 161 the year before. We're hitting 400 as a team. Like, this is like, I got it figured out. And so we had a really good recruiting class, portal class that came in. We had like all Americans coming in, like all conference shortstop. So I'm thinking like, all right, these guys are gonna like figure it out, and we're just gonna keep going. And so that fall, it was Haley Lee. Shout out Haley Lee. She transferred in. She had 1 year with us. And I'm thinking like, oh, I'm about to help her make her like legit, like even more better, greater than what she is. So her build is, she's a really like strong, like big legs, like big engine. Like, you're thinking like, okay, I'm gonna get into the ground. I'm gonna get her in the ground. We're gonna create a lot of ground force. We're gonna turn. We're gonna do all these things, kind of like what I understood to be like what I thought foundational hitting moves. And then that whole semester, the thing she kept saying was stuck. I feel stuck. I feel stuck. And I'm thinking like, how do you not understand what we're doing? How do you not know this? Like, you're hitting 420 tanks. Like, you're like unbelievable. How do you not understand this? You do it. You don't even know that you're doing it. That's what I'm thinking. And so then come January or December, January, I get a call from Lincoln Martin. He's like, hey, you have to get on this Zoom call. I'm like, what is it? He's like, just trust me, like, it's going to be hard to explain. It's tomorrow. Like, you got to jump on. I'm just thinking, all right, let's see what this is. Let's see. And then so Swope, you were giving your presentation, and like within 10, 15 minutes. I was like, oh my gosh, I am screwing up. I am the worst coach of all time. Like, what is going on? And so I had Haley Lee in the back. I just had one player in the back of my mind that was like you're Ariel. You're like this is I cannot believe I'm making you do these things. And it really bridged the gap for me because it was like you're expecting people to do things that they're no matter what I say, no matter how I explain it, they're not going to do it. And it's not because they're not coachable, but it's more because of like I'm not speaking the language that their body that they're wanting to do. So no, it was almost immediately that it was like mind blown. And then it was like, all right, we're gonna blow it up, like blow up everything we know. Here we go, guys. We're going to, and this is before we really knew how to assess. So it was in my head, like we're going to spend the year chewing on things and really just kind of applying like without completely restructuring. We want to apply like little micro applications and just see like where we're at. And so it was like aerial terrestrial, like very first thing was like, hey, let's see aerial terrestrial and just kind of like, hey, have these guys do this, have these guys, and just kind of over the course of the season. And we ended up, that was like, we were 60 something and won in another national championship. It was crazy. But what was cool was now that next year is when we had the clinic, guys came in and just kind of like really got to fill in the gaps that we had of like understanding and then just kind of just continuing to build on top of our just knowledge, and it's just brought us to where we're at.
Man, that's elite. I can't get stop thinking about and so true. And I honestly, I say this and mean it so much. Like you guys at OU, in my perception, are so elite because you're so willing to learn. I think there is no excuse in the industry if someone, like you said, like won a couple national championships in a row. Like you couldn't be more on top of the world. If those people in that room can always continue to learn, how is there an excuse for anybody else? Like I think, and that's it's a testament to you guys and why you guys are a part of the reason why you guys have such sustained success because you are never settling. Like you're continually learning, continually chasing, information that can only help your players. And I just get fired up thinking about it because you guys are elite. I don't know if David, you wanted to add on some of your first experiences, obviously meeting JT in that clinic and talking about, your relationship and how that's grown with the OU staff.
That was a great experience. I remember. I remember the barbecue meal too.
Yeah.
No, that was great. And actually, I think it was. I mean, people when we're doing clinics are always saying like, "Oh my God, that's mind blowing. That's main information we have." Or the other comment we have most part of the time is like just connecting the dots. So it makes things more evident for everybody. But I just really appreciate being there. It was, I mean, the staff was open-minded, asked many questions, and I remember also test JT with primitive reflex at the same time. That was a great one.
Moro dog, baby. Moro dog.
No, that was that. Honestly, that's a great experience. We follow them, like we're in touch with JT like almost every week or every 2 weeks. Um, since and no we had like to deal with reality of players. Like I remember like previously they have like an aerial catcher, which is actually not supposed to be very like good for the catcher, like to be an aerial because they're in full flexion, but actually she could tolerate it, and we work on a strength and conditioning side just to make sure that she was able to actually play the whole season. But it's like no, I love OU. And just one additional thing, they have the best actually milkshake ever in the US, just nearby the university.
This guy can't stop talking about the Oklahoma milkshake. We were in California last week and all he wanted on Uber Eats was the Oklahoma milkshake. I'm like, well, I can't deliver that to you.
Wait, where'd you go to get that? You remember?
Right near our hotel. I know where it is. I don't know the name. I know where it is. I'll find out. I'll let you know.
It's either Freddy's or Brahms. It's one of those two.
Oh, this was the best ever. But no, I mean, I really think that OU is probably one of the most advanced university right now in MPs. The whole staff is, involving to them, and they really start to understand like their players better. I would like to hear about maybe JT about have you seen like a change into the team communication, like internally speaking, between your athletes when they start to understand themselves? Have you seen like less, I will say, individual competition or something like, oh, she's not good at this, or have you seen like an evolution? Because I think we observe that sometimes with some teams, but I mean, you're probably the best, one of the best in the country, like for a decade, probably now. So just want to see like if you have like a difference of, if you see something different, like I would say probably a better, yeah, team spirit will be probably the best word.
Yeah, I think what was pretty cool was like obviously very like the very first thing that happens is when someone finds out they're aerial terrestrial, then they're like, hey, what are you? What are you? What are you? And so then you start I'm trying to make them understand like this we're not creating like factions here within like the groups. Like, we're still all like connected. But I will say sometimes what I'll do is let's say that we're working on rise balls or a certain type of pitch. I might group together some hitters that are pretty similar because they can talk about their adjustments a little bit better. Like, hey, get your chin up. Hey, you raise your hands up, or hey, do whatever it is that they're feeling. They can kind of connect a little bit on that end. And then sometimes like we'll get two opposites together, and maybe there might be something that I know, something that just kind of sparks, conversation about what they're feeling, what they're seeing, what they're perceiving and whatnot. But I think the biggest thing is once our players have kind of like they're going through it, they start to become more accountable for their own development, and they understand like, hey, this is what I do, and I'm going to just keep hammering these things that are in profile, like my foundation, and then I'm just going to work back to that. And if things start to kind of like I lose it a little bit, I come back to like what I know, like terrestrial, I'm large, I'm this, I'm that, whatever it may be. But I think the biggest thing that I've seen with our athletes is like immediate like feedback, like immediate. And it's not necessarily like, hey, I'm good at this or I'm bad at this. I think what it becomes is like, I need to work harder at this. I need to spend a little bit more attention. Like one thing we have is our large athletes, sometimes at inside pitch, they feel like, hey, I got a long way to go there. So it's like, if I know, what are some things that are difficult for me, how can I get there a little bit better, a little bit faster? So they start to become more creative. And I think especially like in today's youth culture, it's become so showcase oriented, like just hit the ball hard, throw the ball hard, and less play. And I think that part, like what we're trying to do at the end of the day is just play. Like that art of play where you can be creative, you can do things how you're going to do them, I think is kind of a callback to the early days of sport, not just baseball, softball. I think just in sport in general, when you're able to go outside when you were a kid and just play, you just did things, you didn't have to think about it. And that's essentially what we're trying to do is when our athletes come in, is not think about the mechanical side of it. When you're on the field, it's playtime. And that's kind of what we're trying to foster is that environment.
Yeah, I think the main thing there is just the communication, right? Like I think it used to be we're all clinicians on this call. Everybody was looking to us to give the answers, to coach, to be that clinician and advise on what you should and shouldn't do. And some people wouldn't give a lot of feedback, some people did. And then there was always this disconnect. Like you said earlier in the call, I was talking to my players early on where they say, stuck, or why can't you do this? Like, and you get more frustrated with the player, right? Because you think you have it figured, or you think you've been successful and have this baseline, but you get frustrated with the player. So I think it's given the form of communication where now we understand stuck, and then we can both kind of go in together on why that may be, right? So I think we're saving time. I think we're being creative in the sense of we're shaping softball and baseball to them instead of the other way around, right? Of just do this. And I think that's been probably one of the most special pieces, is to give grace to that. But the communication is so key. And amongst the team, like you said, it's an accountability, it's a built-in accountability from a communication standpoint, which is a lot of times we're in this game of softball and baseball that's such a failure sport. Like, it's predicated just on failure. It's one of the easiest sports to go to a crutch. The coach said this, the coach made me do this. It was the equipment, it was the environment, it was the weather, it was whatever it could be. It's kind of a sport with a built-in crutch. And for me, one of the biggest things, just besides health and performance, has been able to bridge that gap of communication for easier relationships and things like that.
Yeah, I think I think you might have said this like early on. It was something to the effect of like, if you saw Hank Aaron, or just pick any classic or any like Hall of Famer like that. If you saw, say, Hank Aaron, and he came to your cage, or you came to your camp, would you coach that out of him? And it's like, that really kind of resonated with me a ton, of just not like based on what I think is good, but they're a unique individual that may have something completely different on their
Yeah.
plate.
Yeah, Ted Williams, like, Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth, you
Griffey.
know, Darryl Strawberry, like all guys that are semi, like, oh my God, like either of elastic or just crazy, like Gumby. Like, how do they do that? I don't even know what that is, or how do you even coach that? So yeah, I mean, the evidence has been there for a while. And instead of trying to everybody find that ground force or one particular thing, you just end up hearing, oh, they're an outlier or a freak. And you're like, no, that's not good enough for us coaches. Like, us coaches that want to learn and understand human movement and the brain and the body, like, that's not good enough. We're tired of hearing outlier and freak, right? Like, we want to understand some of the other things. And that's been a cool thing for me.
I think for me as a player, like back to that communication part, like I didn't use MPE as a crutch. It was more an awareness thing. It was information to make me aware of, where I wanted to move, or how I coordinated balance, and where I was most repeatable. And it honestly helped me the most because like you guys, and why I get along so well with you three and Nick, is as an avid learner, I was always searching for more. And especially in my career, like I wanted to be the best player I could possibly be. So when I was scrolling on social media and seeing new drills that big leaguers are having success with, or really famous hitting coaches are talking about, like I was going to go try it, because if there was something that even small that could make me better, I was going to go try and make sure I could either cross it off or add it to my repertoire. But for me, when I learned my preferences, like I was able to sift and sort through information so much better. Like when I was scrolling at night, I can be like, yep, okay, that doesn't fit within my foundation or ranges of motion. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to keep scrolling. And that doesn't mean it's not good for someone else, but I just knew it wasn't good for me. And I feel like my ability as a player to sift through my information, and JT, like you said, have a foundation where you can go to when things go wrong or where things get a little bit off, like I think was such a eye-opening and mental freedom that I had never experienced, and ultimately why I got into it, to spread that as much as possible between players. With you, JT, what were some of, the early moments, where you were like, wow, like this is a game changer? And I know you talked about the specific player who was an aerial in your head, but were there any few moments during that year where you were like, yeah, this is different than what I would have ever teach, but I can see how it clicks?
Well, I can say we had our blue tape moment, and that was like the first, like, holy smokes. And it was, we had a pitcher who was elite, and just was struggling a little bit. And we didn't know if, we said, let's try it. So we were at Mississippi State playing Southeast Louisiana, and I we didn't have blue tape. We forgot to buy blue tape because we were just going to do it. We weren't going to tell anyone. We're just like, hey, surprise, boom, here we go. You don't have to think about it. It's just going to be there. Don't even think about it. So what I did was I got a blue ink pen and I got the athletic tape, like the beige, just normal athletic tape. And I broke open the blue pen and I just smeared. So my hands are like completely covered in ink, and I covered the whole thing in like the bright blue ink, and we just slapped it on our chest, the chest protector, and perfect game. So I'm just saying we have our blue. That was our blue tape moment. But I think the big thing that resonated with me was just from a hitting aspect was instant results. Like, we're talking, hey, try this cue, and like slam, like boom, boom, boom. Like specifically from the aerial side, because we would get people super down, like create a hinge, do this, do this, and it was very grounded. And then it like hurt my soul to be like, hey, just stand up, don't worry about it, just stand up. And then you start just like from there, and that was it. Just stand up. Don't worry. I'm not saying don't use your. I'm not saying anything other than just stand up and let's just see what happens. Stand up, try and hit the ball as hard as you can. And it went from like, just a couple maybe going out, maybe a couple, but it was few and far between. And now like every single ball that's being hit is like, phew, like just the consistency over like just 5 reps. You're like, holy smokes, this is crazy. So I had a lot of moments where it was just like a cue that completely flipped around what a round would look like in BP. And then it was a lot easier in game for some of these guys to make adjustments of like, hey, here's a drop ball, do this. Here's a rise ball, do this. And you start to see them like be on those pitches a little bit more.
That's cool. I always say you don't see to balance, you balance to see. So some of those basic things like that. That's why it's not, listen, we know you can do any type of method or stance or whatever, and through skill acquisition, you can be good at it, right? But we're looking at this like, does it take 3 weeks of ground balls or certain type of, batted ball metrics, or does it take these 5 minutes or 15 minutes of just basic common sense putting them in positions? And like you said, that's the coolest part. I have Matt, I'm going to infuse a question just because I'm curious, because we're on with one of the goats of college softball. So um, I want to ask, like, I'm just curious how you kind of structure what you guys do from a player development standpoint from hitting. Do you guys hit before practice? Do you always hit within? Are you doing MPs like, like individual development drills before, and like outside is more of a task based, like situational based? Like, how have you seen or implemented it kind of with what you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I mean, as you guys know, we are just completely handcuffed by hours, and not in a just it is the constraint that we're living in. So one thing that we did this year that I think I've been trying to like find a way to blend it is like the hitting warm up. And I think like when you see videos on Matt, like you were talking about on social media, these guys doing drills and they're doing this, they're doing that. They're doing it before they like really like get it going. And so what I wanted to do was create an environment where you could pick some of your basic preference, like aerial, terrestrial, or extension leg, or axial arc. Like, just pick like certain things that you just need to feel out. So and it's like low effort swings, but just kind of like getting a feel for where you're at. So we'll do like 6 minutes. So let's say like let's say we start at 2 o'clock. We'll give half of our hitters to our strength coach to do a warm, like just a general warm up, and then the other half are going to be either with me or on defense. And so I'll have 6 minutes where they're just getting like, hey, let's get on your one, just get some easy swings, just stop at contact, get through just some like foundational, what I call like foundational skill work. So that, and it's just 6 minutes. And I'm talking, it's every bit of 6 minutes, like boom, 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 go, go, go. And it's not like rushing them, but like, it's like, all right, hey, take an easy hack. Here comes another one. Easy hack. Here comes another one. To just kind of reinforce that. And so then after that, we get into our practice. And then I'm really big about setting up an environment and then you figuring out that environment. So we might have a machine that is throwing like two different pitches. And it's like, hey, no one on. I need you to hit a ball that is going to get you on base. It's not going to be, maybe it's not a complete, like, can you get away with elevating the ball a little bit more? Can you get away with lowering the ball a little bit more? So they start to figure out just how to kind of like succeed in that environment. It's not super easy. There's times where we'll have BP, we'll do some stuff like that. But like I'm really big at the end of the day, the game is the test. So the more that we can practice the test, I think the better off you're going to be when it actually comes to playing, and it's the easiest thing. So we'll set up sometimes speed, like, hey, here's a high velo, like let's see what you got. Let's see, or hey, 2 strikes, let's see what you got. So I'm really big in setting that stuff up, and then like there's a time and place for the other things. But once we get out of our 8 hour windows, I give them like, hey, if you guys want to feel like mechanical, you guys want to feel some of these things, like you're going to have to swing on your own because we just don't have the time to like just really like dig deep into that and just because we gotta get you better at the test. So we kind of structure it to where early on in the fall we're talking a lot about what their foundation is, and especially like right after our clinic comes in and they know we do some education on that, then they can start to kind of dip their toe in and feel what feels good. And what's really cool for me is when we'll be in the middle of practice and I get a question about, hey, I know that I'm this, but I feel this. And then now we start to have a really good conversation, and then we can kind of dig into like the why they're feeling what they're feeling. And then like, boom, now you feel good. Now you understand, but here, let's compete here. Let's get ourselves going. So kind of like long-winded answer to like, I'm more big into like environment, and then you find out how you fit into that and you do your thing into that.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest thing. It's the same thing as scouting reports, right? Like, hey, it's a scouting report and I have to give you a generic scouting report, but do you hit the rise ball better or the sinker because you're a pronator, supinator? Where's your eyes? How's your stance? Like, that's the coolest part. So those environments is really where you get the feedback from the player, because instead of just having these metrics where they know they're not good at something, but they don't have a reason for it or know how to apply it. Now, with these game environments that you're describing, when they're not good at something or they can struggle, you can talk about these little details to try this, or the real versus feel, and then you can see it actionable in the game. So you may hate the ball down and away, but if we have a tangible cue towards doing something within that environment to help you with that, now they may not perceive it as a weakness as much, or they may not just go into it with like, oh, I'm just not good at that, so I don't know, right? And then they get struggle with figuring it out, or they get frustrated, right? So that's the most important aspect of what you're saying, to me.
Yeah, we have a aerial, lefty aerial, axial. So everything works like up top. And she struggles with drop balls. Like it's tough. And like especially like a drop away. But what completely turned the corner was just like, hey, instead of like let's worry about how to hit the drop ball, here's what we got. Run at first, there's no outs. You're getting this pitch. Where do you want to hit the ball? Well, I'm gonna try and elevate. So now she swings. It's like, all right, did you elevate it? No. So what are you gonna do different? Okay, I'm going to try and just hit the highest fly ball to left center. And then now you start to see it on a line, like her thinking of high fly ball actually gets a line drive into the gap. Now we got a double possible scoring positions on a pitch that she struggles with. If you just tell her like, hey, do this, do this, do this, it's really hard for her. But if I just tell her, hit it over there, high fly ball over there, now she knows what she can kind of get away with. And how she does it is like I couldn't feel that. It would be
Yeah.
hard for me to like, I don't know. So that's kind of how we blend it in.
Yeah, and that's kind of the responsibility we have as coaches. Like, is it environmental cue, right? External cue, it's something external within that environment right there? Is it someone that does need an actual mechanical cue? Is it like, hey, don't swing at that at all? You're just taking that, right? Like from an approach standpoint, there's all different ways, and that's the hard part. You're responsible for learning that individual and your whole team to know what kind of feedback or what they need to help them. That's what makes this so special and cool. And story after story of why I can pull things from you, how you do practice and what you do, because this is individually what we're all good at. It just expedites the process of it, and how much better they get, how much faster. That's the coolest part. So those are cool stories.
No, it's so cool to listen to both of you guys because when, JT, you talking about the test, like we have to be really good at the test, not at the practice test. And I think so much about like, can we help hitters be hitters and not swingers? And that's exactly what, you are so good at doing what Swope is so good at doing is, hey, listen, like we have a foundation that's individual for you. We're going to take our warm-up time, we're going to take our flips time to really feel that and get balanced and have our eyes where they need to be. But now when we throw you into a game situation or a test situation, like we can uniquely talk to each player, like you said, to your point of like, how do we accomplish this task for the team? And now we're building like real hitters instead of just swingers in the cage. And I think our industry, and especially in this period now where you end the fall and players go home and get ready for the season. Now, the players who are aware of their profile, like can spend less time on their A swing and more on what is applicable to the game and getting really good at, like you said, different pitch types, different speeds, different pitch shapes, all that, instead of focusing on 80% of their time their A swing when you and I and everyone on this call knows that that shows up not as often as just being a hitter in the game and finding a way to do the job for the team. So that's what I take away, which is awesome.
I'm taking away like the intention part, which actually guides all our movement. Uh, what is crazy, and I think like a lot of people misunderstand NPs with that, is like because you're in profile, people have to understand that we're just saving energy. So like the story that just JT told us, like the player is like trained, let's say 75 or 80% of the time into their profile. They just have enough energy actually to adjust themselves in specific situation to swing away from their profile, but we don't care because I mean they won't put themselves in danger because they have a high level of energy because they saved the energy previously by being into profile. So that's something that people, I mean, struggle sometimes to understand. But what JD is doing is perfect actually. Like the player can really find out the solution herself. That's just gonna cost her more energy. Like, and the energy is coming from a focus and a movement that I don't really like, but I can do it. So it's exactly what MPs are about.
Yeah, you really see it in pitchers too. I mean, we're talking about pitchers where they have to be out there longer and it's a lot more reps and whatever. You really, really can see movement efficiency and energy and the taxing situation with that. So that's something in baseball or softball you can really see because the amount of stress and energy it takes to pitch that long and do all that. So that's a good point.
What's going to be interesting, especially in the baseball world, is what Yamamoto did in this World Series is that was pretty insane, like never seen before. So, I mean, David, to your point about like energy expenditure, and what that looks like, and just being able to bounce back and just keep going like that. It's going to be interesting to see how people kind of attack that and see how they blend those energy demands.
Well, at that level, you have to understand, like we're not dealing with one I mean Ford F-150, but those athletes are Formula One. So, I mean, they know themselves. They know where they're coming from. And actually, it's like for Yamamoto per se, it's like a short period of time in his whole year. It's like 2 games. Okay, like can I do it? Yes. Why? There's like many motivations behind that.
They
But
take a lot of time off right after that.
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot of time off. But actually, if you take a look at, we can switch to marathon runners, like, I mean, or, trail runners. Those guys are running in mountains for 3 days. Like, it's like, even for me, it's like non-human thing, but they can do it. So again, like your intention and what you want to achieve actually is going to take over the system. The system is going to adapt, and at one point it's going to raise its hand and say, "Hey, stop! This is where the injury is going to come up." But intention guide everything. And actually, what is crazy is are related to that intention is the strength that the body can produce, that we can break bones with our muscles. This is how strong we can be. So again, the intention guide everything. And when you have enough energy because you actually train into your profile and actually per se your weakness, you can deal with them. So back to what Swope told earlier, like for me, when you know your profile, it's not a game of failure anymore. It's a game of learning. You just learn, permanently on yourself, on your game, on how to react, on how to deal with stress situation, communicate with the coach. And I think like I understand the point where it's coming from, like the gale of failure, when you don't understand why you have been like struck out 5 times in a game. But actually, when you start to understand and you can adjust yourself, that's make a change.
Well, yeah, I think that's cool. What JT would probably say too is the coolest thing is when, were you on time and did you get a good pitch? Like that's the foundation of like probably any good hitter, right? Were you on time? Did you get a good pitch to hit? But from there is, are you going back to the water cooler when you got out and you're saying, I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm lost, whatever, or you're going back and, one of the players comes over to JT and says, I just got myself out there, coach, or I know what I did. Like those are the cooler things with the game within the game of that accountability and understanding and adjustments that they can make within that. And it's not a consistent tinkering or searching within the day. Because competing is really like whether you're at 60% or whatever is really whatever you have that day to go out and win based off what the constraints are in the environment and the game presents itself. So I think those are probably some of the cool things that JT can relate to is like you feel good about yourself as a coach when you feel like they're handling it themselves and making the adjustments instead of using you for a crutch.
Yeah. David, I don't know if you knew this, but you definitely just quoted Kobe Bryant and how failure doesn't exist. So you're locked in. Yeah,
Yeah. He doesn't know that, but he'll appreciate
I
that
know,
now.
that's what I'm saying.
I know Kobe Bryant, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, but you didn't know the quote. So
No, I didn't know the quote, but
that
actually,
makes it even cooler.
Probably, I would say the biggest stars we have in sports understand themselves.
Yeah.
And they have probably the best proprioception ever, so they actually can really handle their body, the gravity.
Look at Yamamoto. Look at him in the dugout. Look at that guy. Watch that guy's process. Watch him like you want to talk about why he can do that? My gosh, that guy's on every aspect of every single thing. And I know that's like easy for us a coach to go on, but no, when your process is like that, when you do things like that, you're just on another level,
JT, looking back at, your coaching career and looking back at, someone like yourself that was entering into the profession, what advice would you have for, new coaches entering into the profession or, common mistakes you see with coaches now? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, that was one of the big things like that I wanted to make sure of that I knew was like to be open to everything. I wanted to know what everyone was saying because I feel like, everyone has a place at the table to say what they're going to say or work, at some level, my instruction to somebody has worked to a certain point. Now, I think where people get lost is like because it worked there, that it was going to work for everybody, right? And so that's where I felt like especially early on my softball career was do a quick story. So back then, like OU, when I was a GA, OU was like the best. Like you had Lauren Chamberlain, you had Shelby Pinley, you had all these guys that could absolutely just mash. And the intention was like the swing down, like let's be short to the ball, swing down. We're gonna be in a good sequence, but it's gonna be more about like transferring energy to the front side, swing down. And like you can't look, Lauren Chamberlain was, I mean, a home run queen for however many years. So it's like you look at her and it's like, how are you gonna tell her that that doesn't work? Well, if she's saying that's what she's doing it. But then there was Louisiana Lafayette with Coach Lotif was all about rotation and they have these split grips, and everyone said like, oh, it's not gonna, that does not work, that's not gonna work. But like they were mashing and they could hit and to be able to at a mid-major put up the numbers and compete and make the World Series and do everything. In my head, I was like, okay, you have two sides that are completely different, and both are absolutely just mashing. So that really made me feel like, well, I want to be able to know everything so that I can apply these different things to different people. So I don't think, and I'm not saying don't have a foundation, don't like, I think like learning and not tying yourself to one thing and just like forcing it. Like if it doesn't make sense or you're questioning it, then I think it's okay to like learn something or learn how to apply something else. I think the other thing is um, set guardrails up that can hold yourself accountable. That if someone is not, um, I guess, open or perceiving what you're saying, then it's not on them. It's on you, the coach, to repackage it or do something that they can understand. Like you have to meet the athlete at where they're at. And I mean, there's things like, hey, I want you to be on time. I'm not talking like characteristics. I'm not talking about be on time or not. I'm saying more of like when it comes to the athlete themselves, you have to go to them. They don't come to you, and you got to be able to speak their language. And I think a lot of times, especially like young coaches, it's like, I know what I'm saying. You listen to me because I have the information instead of like, let me come to you and we're going to speak your language instead of you figure out what we're doing. I don't know if that makes, so it's being open and holding yourself accountable to connecting best with your athletes.
Yeah, I talk about all the time. It's like it's a partnership. This isn't, this is a partnership, and you have to have that feedback with me. And if you don't understand, I have to change it to you, changing baseball or softball to you. So, and if it's a partnership, then regardless of what you're working on or what you're trying to change or keep it the same, like this is a partnership. So we know we have that partnership when we go out and compete to win the game, that we're all in together. And that's what's getting lost with the silos and what's getting lost early on with a lot of these different things. It's no, I want to be right more than I want to grow, right? I want to be right. And that comes off in all my communication instead of, you know, being able to be a chameleon per se as a coach and understand and meet them exactly what you said, where they're at, to know what to help them to be successful. So I
Yeah,
thought that was perfect.
I think like what I there's so much information and resources and all these things being poured into measuring. And I remember when I'm learning about sequences and they're coming out with biomechanical things, and you're trying to create a good sequence. And back then it was like 1 2 3 4, that's what you want, 1 2 3
Yeah.
4. And then you have a JD Martinez who's starting with his three. And then like if
Sure.
it's not going to be 100% across the board, then in my mind it's not like if you have exceptions, then it's not always going to be that. And I think early on, like knowing like, hey, who are the people that are not going to be a perfect 1 2 3 4, and why are they not doing that? And if like that's kind of like where I was of like, yeah, maybe that, and I know David, we've talked about this too, of like sometimes these studies or the stuff that you're looking at is going to bias the people that do it really well. Because you could have someone that does a perfect sequence and doesn't hit the ball hard. Or you could be someone who doesn't have a good sequence per se and just absolutely crushes the ball. So it's like, how do you explain for, the disparity or just the differences in the data that you're looking at? So I try and take a lot of stuff in and just kind of like have a perspective of like, there's a place for these different things.
Yeah, spot on. I think Trout was somewhat backwards on that too. Like, so you're talking about Trout and JD Martinez,
Yeah,
guys,
exactly.
guys winning MVPs, and you're like, all right, but there's something's not adding up.
I keep thinking in my head too with JT what you said in terms of like meeting the athlete and allowing them to be open, communicators to you and helping them from when they feel stuck or when they don't feel good, but also in the aspect of health too. Like I know you guys have had a lot of success in terms of Yamamoto, like that example of being able to bounce back, conserve energy, and specifically for you guys, like you guys, your goal at the end of the year is to have a national championship. So we want, the girls that you have on your team not only to be healthy and ready at the beginning of the season, but also be at their best form that they can possibly be after 70 games. So can you talk a little bit about, your communication with them in terms of the health side and, how you've seen, some energy being saved over the course of the season after learning a little bit about MP?
Yeah, so that was the one thing was number one for our aerial catcher was just like, okay, how can we help you? How can we just help you like stay away from the injury side, right? Like these lower limb injuries, knee, ankle. So, and some of them were freak accidents, like, just wear and tear. But one of the things that we got out of that was just like just a one knee setup and knowing how big that was, just so we're not completely in flexion all the time, but also too of, hey, if you don't have to squat, we're not going to squat today. We're not going to get down and do it. She can handle a little bit more, but it's just kind of those things of just of knowing like, where are what are the red flags? Where are you at? Are you moving in profile? Are you moving out of profile? Are the positions that we're in? Like if you have a aerial infielder, and let's say that we're doing a bunch of like low ground based skill work of like body positioning and whatnot. Well, there's gonna be like a breaking point almost that we know like, hey, we're good. She's good. She's good with this. We don't have to do a ton with that. So at the end of the year, we're trying to have zero injuries, and things happen. I get that, but it's like, when you get to at the end of the season, we want to be able to build for the next season too, so it's just knowing like what are the things that we're doing and like what can we expect out of them at this part. Like if we're doing a bunch of like running based, I guess like sprint based drills, like what's that going to do to our terrestrial, like because they still need, you still need to be able to run, right? You still want to do that, but like how much, like what's going to make sense for these guys? Like where are we getting them to the point to where they're shutting down, like their bodies are going to just completely like, break, or are we like managing them correctly? So we do a lot in the sense of like taking, like doing an intake of what we've done, where we're at, and just kind of what do we need more of. We do a lot of stuff post game with recovery, and that's probably the biggest buzzword you hear nowadays is like recovery, of like, oh, we do a ton of recovery, but like just going sometimes, yeah, sleep is like your number one big thing, right? But it's like, we try and get some mobility, some good input into the muscles or the systems that they're using the most out of. So like our terrestrials will be doing a lot of like ground based mobility movements to kind of like get input into their hips, to kind of like kind of deregulate after a game, help them get ready for bed and do some stuff like that. Aerials were doing like a ton of foot, ankle, calf, a lot of like hamstring input, just kind of getting some things into those areas. And what's probably the funniest thing that you'll see is we'll be in our meeting space after a game, and you have the terrestrials that are doing their mobility work, and then they look over at the aerials who are rolling on a crossball on their calf, and the terrestrials like, they're not doing anything. They're not doing one thing, and the aerials are like, oh my calf, they're like completely getting crushed on just a super simple thing. But it's funny to kind of like see them like, that does nothing. Like, you're not doing one thing. Like, I can do that all day, right? But it's speaks to the uniqueness of the athletes and kind of the systems that they're using more of and what they need. And that's a big thing, is just getting athletes what they need so that they can feel better kind of moving forward.
That's so elite. It fires me up because I think that's what's awesome about MP, at least in my view, is it can go so many different ways, and it is so many different parts of the game, not only from a foundational hitting and pitching side in terms of, cues and mechanics that or preferred ranges of motion that people prefer to work in, but also like the nuanced details of, okay, we're doing something that a drill that's more flexion based, like maybe our aerials, we know everyone can do a specific drill, but at what point is there a breaking point, and is there people that need more of this, or is there people that, hey, you got your reps in, you're good? So it's not saying that there's, nobody can, or there are certain people that can't get into certain positions, but at what point, if the body can't handle it, how much are we monitoring those reps and putting them in those positions? So I think that's obviously awesome to hear. Before we wrap up, obviously wanted to give you a chance, JT, to talk about, your team this year, what you're looking forward to, and, the culture that you guys have going on at OU from years past and continuing into this team.
Yeah. So, starting with last year, I think that last year probably was our biggest test. And it was like, you know, it didn't matter how. So for some of these guys, like if you had Jocelyn Allo, Kinsey Hansen, Jada Coleman, Tiara Jennings, you list all these All-Americans. It doesn't matter if you put them in profile or not, they're going to be elite, right? So yeah, last year was our biggest test because we had phenomenal green athletes. And it was like, all right, we're going to coach. Like, here we go. We're going to coach. Let's test it. And I think we squeezed everything that we could out of our athletes, and you just saw them just go to new heights that they had never done before. You have someone like Gabby Garcia who had 20 tanks, hit 350. She had never hit 20 homers in her life, right? I mean, she would tell you not even in a BP round, right? So there was like, I think what it's showing is that there's when you really are training and kind of speaking to the profile of these different athletes, their ceilings just like completely change in a good way. And so what I'm excited to see this year is with our freshmen who we've talked to just very minimal, like, hey, this is where you're at, like before they got onto campus. Because my thing is, I don't want to talk to our signees. I do. I said it wrong. It's like, oh, don't talk to me ever. I don't want to do like a ton of instruction because we see them for maybe a 45-minute window once a year or twice a year, right? And it's hard when you don't have that day-to-day interaction. So I always just tell them like, hey, these are some very minimal things that I'm seeing. But like, just do your thing. And when you get here on campus, we got it. We're going to do our thing. And so with our freshmen, just being open to kind of like, I'm not saying changes. We haven't changed anyone's swing and like completely like, you don't know how to hit. Like, let's completely start over. But it's like adding a thing here, and just go. Just go. And seeing our freshmen this year they're super athletic and just continuing to raise their ceiling. But then you have our returners from last year that have built a really good foundation, and see them continue to push themselves. So you're seeing, and then especially with how our season ended, you have all these players that are hungry. And that's what's really been exciting, is seeing these guys be like, yeah, we're just going to keep getting better. We're going to keep grinding, keep working hard. Let's just see how good we can get. And I'm really excited come January we can get going again, because these guys are going to have, we're getting close to sending them off for break. So it's going to be really cool to see these guys take accountability for their own development over the next month and a half, and just see like, hey, when we get back in January, like, let's go, here we go. And you're seeing these guys really come in. Their understanding of themselves is way more than I think what an average athlete is. And you're seeing them just like, they can talk. My job is that if I can, I want to be there for them as their caddy, but like if I can take a step back and they know what they're doing, I'm there to bounce things off of and hold them accountable and set these things up and coach them. But like when we have athletes that are saying like, oh, I know that that I'm, moving this way, or I'm doing this a certain way, and they take that upon themselves, then it just makes my job a lot easier, because now we can move on to more advanced things that's going to progress like the whole team instead of just one little individual at a time. So, it's basically that adage, like you give a man a fish or you teach him to fish, right? That's what we're doing, is we are giving them the tools that they know how they operate within their own kind of individual bodies and athleticism.
Boomer sooner. That's all you got to say to that one. My God, we're the three of us and Nick included, we're so excited to follow you guys this year, and we'll be cheering you on, and obviously we'll be in your corner and talking to you guys throughout the season. But obviously just wanted to thank you for coming on today and sharing your input and giving so much great advice for anyone that's listening and applying MPs for the first time, and seeing the effects and the benefits that you guys have had on such a big stage. So we can't thank you enough for coming on. We can't thank you enough for our partnership and getting to learn stuff from you guys, and look forward to continuing watching you guys vie for national championships and bringing a couple more home to Oklahoma. So we appreciate you so much. And MP podcast 5 was elite, and we're excited to get back to MP podcast 6 shortly. But we appreciate you, JT, for coming on.
Love it. Thank you guys. Appreciate you guys, everything you're doing too.
Thank you.